Hello, welcome to the Stripology podcast. I'm your host, Wendy, and yeah, welcome back. So, this episode is dedicated to winter, the season. There's a lot of winters out there, I know. It's a popular stripper name. Let me move my shirt that I took off. Anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, you get the video. Super fun. Anyway, so yeah, this episode is dedicated to winter and a few of the topics that come up like around the change of season. So this has had me thinking and reminiscing a little bit, on like times where, say for example, it's cold, it's rainy, and the last thing you want to do is like put on scantily clad clothing and uncomfortable shoes and get out there and do your thing, right? So it's moments where you can potentially say talk yourself out of work, and that is all good. I'm all down for that. Because obviously strategic breaks are important and all of that. But this episode is for you if you're wanting to create consistency, you want to keep going, and you're just wanting like that bit of motivation that helps in those moments where you're like, oh, staying at home feels really good right now. Like that would be a great option, but it's not in alignment with your goals and what you are dedicated to be doing at the time, right? So it has me reminiscing back on so many times in my past where, I just shared on my Instagram story, like the amount of times during winter that I've done privates and, it's like 3 a.m., it's freezing fucking cold, it's like probably raining, and the job just happens to be in someone's backyard. Yay, with like a fire, so you smell like a bushfire when you get home. So it's like you're torn between the warmth of the fire and wanting to stay the fuck away from it because you're going to smell like smoke for the next three hair washes. And then, getting your hands into the cold esky or like ice box, whatever you want to call it, and getting people's beers out and your fingers just want to snap off. Obviously, the club's different, but some clubs, for some reason, and some of you might feel this, the aircon's on during winter for some insane reason. So it can get cold, it can get uncomfortable. Maybe the club is a little slower because some people as well are going through that. They're like, I could go out, but you know what? I might just stay in tonight. And then, yeah, there's one less bum on the seat, right? It happens. It happens in seasons, it happens in waves. And so this episode is for those times where it's just like, you want to hit your goals, but you also want to like stay in, and it's kind of a bit of a conflict. You've got a conflict going on. And something that's really helpful to do in those times is tune into obviously your why, like what is it all for? What are your goals? What does all of this work for? And like obviously, hopefully you enjoyed along the way, but usually there's a big picture. It's like, yeah, like this is all building towards something. And so tuning into your why is very, very helpful, just to stay on track and to push yourself and find that motivation in those difficult moments. Sometimes as well, your why can just sort of stop feeling so meaningful or important. And so something I want to bring up in this episode is your values, right? So we've all got like a set of values within us, and they are what really drive us. They are what we take action on. Basically, the thing that we value the highest, we will make sure that that happens, right? Like our unconscious mind is driven by our values. And I'm going to give an example. Like for such a long time in my career, my top value was money. Money and fun. Fun was on the radar. Like fun, I don't care if it's a bad idea. If it's fun, I'm doing it. And that goes really well in the industry with like making money. So that always felt really aligned. For me, for a lot of the time, rest was not on my radar. And look, I admit and I accept that like I did work in a really out there crazy way that a lot of people were like, you're insane, you're a machine, like all these things. And I get it. And I'm not here to sit here and go, do that. You know, we all have our own set of values. But for me, looking back, yeah, rest was not on the radar. I had a mantra like, I will sleep when I'm dead. Thank you. I'll check in. Am I dead? No. Then I'm going to be making money. Like that's just, you know, the way that I would show up. And if I was super exhausted, I'd just be like, okay, work donkey mode, like I just sort of, you know, whatever I could like tell myself to get through. And then fun was on the radar massively, you know. So, for example, thinking back to Melbourne, a lot of my work trips, you know, like sometimes I would, you know, do, yeah, whatever, like several weeks in a row back to back. And I would even go to the day clubs in the day, like after a shift, like say it finished at like 9 or 10 a.m. If if anyone was like, we're going out to the club after, you know, like whether it was like a bouncer, a staff member, you know, or like any of the girls, I'd be like, well, that sounds fun, even though I have to work tomorrow night. Let's do that. That's ticking my boxes. Like, you know, I can do that. Sounds like a fun adventure, and I'll deal with the tiredness later because it ticks that box, right? So anyway, looking back now, it's like that was a little bit full on, but super fun because essentially if our values are being met and you know we're ticking those boxes, we tend to feel more satisfied. And so for me, because rest wasn't really on the radar, it didn't affect me too much. I could very much like mind over matter things because I'm like, oh, well, you know, like whatever, I'll sleep when I'm dead, all good, you know, like let's continue having fun and making money. So that's one thing. So I understand that, and not everyone can relate to that. And, you know, that's all well and good. But in my later years, my values kind of shifted a little bit. And, you know, I still wanted to maintain a consistent high income with rest entering the chat and like a bit more stability, you know, in my decision making in my life entered the chat. And so I really had to like rejig the way I did things because those needs needed to be met. Now, for me, money always represented safety, creating safety. Like it wasn't just about the money. It was like always with the aim, my why was like to create a safe environment for me to live in. You know, that's a huge factor. So it was like that had a lot of drive behind it. And thankfully, you know, my version of myself today, I'm like, thank fuck I did that. Because I get to enjoy that now, you know. But let's look at say for example winter stepping in and say if you have some values on your radar which are like say rest or health or fitness or things where you can see that there could be a conflict around, well, I really want to make money, for example, but I really value my rest and my health. And then say, for example, in the colder seasons, you know, it's easy to support seeing that there could be a potential conflict, right? Being like, well, I really want to make money, but like I don't want to get run down because I might, you know, end up getting a cold and getting sick. So my like health and rest like values and need is not being ticked. So then it starts getting harder and harder to kind of want to keep going and showing up at work. And, you know, it just can create this little like sort of separation in your values. And then it's almost like a picking or choosing. And you can kind of be left feeling a bit dissatisfied no matter which one you choose because there's a conflict there. But it doesn't really need to be that way. It can be helpful to take some time and really feel into like what are my values? Like what am I running at the moment? Like what are the things that if that is met, I feel good, I feel I can rest easy, or, I can feel happy about that, like um, whatever it is for you personally. And so let's look at, for example, like a conflict going on with your values. A great example is rest and money and working. Um, if we then reverse engineer and put in like a system in place for ourselves so our brain knows, like, actually, I'm going to meet both of those needs. They don't need to be in conflict. We can look at so much evidence as to why they're in conflict. Cool. So we've got that down pat. Now it's time to look at evidence for how they can actually support each other. And so this might take like a little bit of, creative thinking and a little bit of effort, but it can certainly be done. We can really look at ways that like our values can work together so we feel satisfied and we don't have an internal conflict, because yeah, that can just lead to feeling drained energy wise, not really ever feeling satisfied no matter which route we take. And yeah, motivation can suffer and all of those things. So in this example, like with winter here, let's just say like, okay, being cozy, like, all of those things, it can, if we look at like, okay, rest might sort of like go up a few rungs in the values that we've got. We've got like a list of values, but some take precedent over others, And so noticing that and going, okay, you know what, like comfort and rest, that's I'm really feeling like I need that more. I need to put more effort into that basket at the moment, but in a way that still supports, it's not in conflict with, say, for example, work and money. So what can we do that's going to like help that part of ourselves feel satisfied and feel like it's been heard and it's not just been ignored? Like every time you go to work, it's like, oh, great, I'm really ignoring my need for rest, for example. So reverse engineering and being like, okay, what are some things I can put into place that feel really good and balanced? And so, yeah, zipping back to like my later years where, the, the insane like focus on money and working and like craziness and fun, like that being dialed down a bit, and then like, yeah, balance and rest and comfort sort of like entering the chat and going up a few rungs. Then realizing, okay, cool, like preparation. So, just little things to prepare that like help you to know that, look, I'm not ignoring that need. I'm actually, considering both things at the same time. So some things that like for me personally that I found really, really helped was really sectioning off like, this is my time to work and this is my time for rest. Because sometimes if they bleed into each other, you're not doing either one really that well. You're at work, but you're like, I should be at home resting. Like, this is cold, this is my feet hurt, like, and then if you're resting at home, you're like, oh my God, I should be working. Like, I've got my goals and what am I doing? So sectioning those off so they don't bleed into each other is a really great way to, save your energy and just have like clear-cut boundaries for yourself. So each thing that you do is filling that bucket, and it's productive in its own way. Rest is super productive. So there's that. We can also look at, okay, cool, like if we're noticing, oh, like it's, say for example, it's so cold and miserable outside, like I really don't want to go to work, what can I do that's going to help me feel like I'm looking after that part of myself that doesn't want to, go through that basically. And so little things that I like to do, again, like this was more so when I was doing privates, but like, finding like little shrugs or like little, I love anything fluffy, like I even hand sewed this cute little fluffy. My mum helped me actually one time when she was visiting, like this little hooded but lined and thick, like glittery. It was like sequins and fur, and anyway, with this silk hood, super cute, but it kept me warm. And so it was like, just sort of preparing for like, I know I'm going to be cold, so I want to bring a bit of comfort into it. Other things like, just having like a nice, nourishing, warm soup that you can come home to, and say some like super comfy pajamas, and having like a little routine that satisfies that part of you that wants that comfort and that rest, but it's sectioned off and knowing like, look, when I get home, like I'm gonna rest even easier because A, I've tired myself out like with work. B, I'm ticking that box. That's important as well as the rest. C, I can come home and fully like celebrate the coming home, like put on like your red light lamp, like have a nice hot shower, like maybe nice products that you like to use, have that fluffy, pajamas set up, like a warm, nourishing soup. You could make also, even in club, like you can fill up a thermos and make sure that you've got like a warm drink to sip. Just so you've got these little things that support you through that time, so that part is not feeling neglected, and telling you you need to go home now. It's like I will be, and we're going to celebrate that, but for now we're focusing on this. um so yeah, just really like noticing any part of like your value system that's feeling a little neglected or in conflict, and looking at that and going, cool, what can I do so each part, all the parts want what's best for you, but they do it in different ways. That's why conflicts can arise. So it's important to like acknowledge each one and go, cool, what do you need? What do you need? And know that when they're working in harmony, that naturally unlocks a lot of motivation, and it unlocks a lot of like energy towards the things that that you're wanting to do, or satisfy. So yeah, a change of season I find is like such a good time to check in with not only your why, because that can naturally help motivate, but then also like you don't want to sort of, okay, my why is this, and like I have to ignore all parts of myself except for, like thrashing myself towards that. It's like, cool, like, say health and fitness is in there. I know so long for me, I didn't respect my rest, and I would, book a PT. And I remember for this one period, he only had this time in the morning available. That was like 9 a.m. And I remember for so long, I was like, cool, I'll take that spot. And you know what? After so long, I realized this doesn't work for me. Like I'm waking up and I'm not able to train properly because I'm still tired. I haven't eaten properly. I haven't, if even if I did get to eat something, like, I'm still digesting it, like trying to, get there half asleep. So it's like, yeah, again, with all those parts, like, okay, respecting your rest time, it's like if you know that your morning needs to start at like 11:30 a.m. or 1 p.m. or whatever it is, it's like, without guilt, understanding like that's supporting you, that's needed. And also I remember as well, like rewinding way back before I'd told my family, it took me 5 years to tell them, that I was stripping. And I remember one of my brothers had some kids, and he always invited me over. Well, not always, but if he ever did invite me over, it was like 8:30 a.m. on a Saturday. But I hadn't told him what I was doing. So I was always like, oh, like I'll still be asleep. And then he would be like, you're so lazy. Like, what are you doing in bed all day? Um, I still had this strict thing, but I remember like I felt guilty and I felt bad, and I felt like, that affected me, like because I knew how hard I was working. And then to be called lazy, it was just like, a part of me was like, no, I want to show him I'm not lazy. But it's like, yeah, anyway, there's just all these little things that can feed into, oh, are we letting certain things like sort of like impinge on our bound, like the things that we need to set that support us, and just sneakily having a look at that, because I know that through time. Yeah, for example, like the PT session at 9 a.m. I thought, well, I can do that, I can make it, like, why not? But then realizing it wasn't sustainable long term, because I wasn't training properly, and I wasn't resting properly, and yeah, there was just a conflict. So like that had to be rejigged. And these things are good to look at, because you can sort of make little tweaks depending on like the season, or depending on just what's going on in your reality, or how you're feeling, or whatever, and noticing like, what, maybe I need to tweak a little bit, like my importance on money making, and I need to sort of, you know, show up a bit more there. Or it might be the opposite. It might be like, I need to like respect my rest a little bit more, because my body and mind are screaming at me. And maybe I should listen, and maybe that will be helpful. So all parts can work together in a really nice, congruent, supportive, harmonious way. So yeah, this is just your invitation. If you are feeling like a little bit low motivation, if you're noticing, another thing that's interesting, I just wanted to mention, and I almost forgot, your body knows, it knows what time of year it is, right? So for example, if you've had a difficult event happen at a certain time of year, your body actually knows that. And so on the anniversary, sometimes you might, without even being aware, like, oh, why do I feel sad at the moment? And sometimes it is the anniversary of something that was a bit traumatic, and your body knows, like, sometimes as winter rolls in, you can almost anticipate, because your body remembers like, oh, last year, it was really fucking cold and uncomfortable, and you almost like anticipate that, and then it can you can feel this resistance coming up, and so you might be like, have all these goals and like, yeah, cool, I'm going to work this many nights, and then suddenly you get this resistance up. So it's a good time to check in and be like, cool, like, how am I feeling? What am I needing? And what can I do to help support myself in the way that I want to show up? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I am going to upload this myself. If you've been following along, I have a big fear of tech, and I've had a healing session. A friend recommended me to this guy, and it was actually so interesting. And a lot of things came up that I actually didn't know were related until they came up, and I was like, wow, that makes sense. So wish me luck. If you're listening to this, then I guess it went well. All right, have a good week. Bye.